So all of your inner deeds of myself. And what I
don't take this moment from me. That's everything. Clip. I just want to say, Shay, I don't disagree with you.
Welcome back to Zeke's Lunchbox. Today we're going to do an acrylic blending step by step, really talking through exactly how I go from the beginning of a painting to finishing it off. Now, I've already started this piece. I was going to do a time lapse, but then personally been getting pretty bored of them. And I also feel like just want to talk a little bit more about the technical side, since I feel like a lot of people ask me a lot about it. I don't exactly feel comfortable doing a tutorial, but maybe this is going to be the closest you're going to get with like talking through in real time what the steps are. So my plan for today is to start my foundation on the main body of the subject matter. So by body, I mean literally try and get started into painting her. I normally start with painting the background and then go to the focal point, but lately I've been trying to not completely finish the background until I get more of a understanding of what the focal point is, so I can tell whether or not I need to push or pull the background. And before we head into the video, make sure you like and subscribe the video. About 60% of the people who watch my videos aren't subscribed. So if you are one of those peeps, take a look down below and subscribe, and yeah, then you can watch more of this stuff and hear me talk about the art process. If that's interesting to you, give it a subscribe. All right, let's head into it. So first of all, I'm going to chat a little bit about materials. All the materials that I am using or currently using, I will have below as well. So if at any point you see an item that you think will be useful to you, head over to the description and I'll have a link for that. I've got some water, small to medium sized brushes, just a standard round palette. Palette that I use is just the cheap ones that you can buy at the store in like a 5-pack. So I'm going to be using quite a lot of colors. I mix my colors, but I don't like mixing them too much just because I find that I need a lot of consistency in a lot of the paint, and when I mix paint, that'll vary day to day. I obviously mix my paint with like a lot of white, but yeah, I try and just find like very specific colors. I'll just use them, add some white. Pretty expensive that way, but that's just the technique that I found because I'm very, very specific about my colors. So the paint I'm using today is Beas Structure. It's an Australian brand. I will have this linked below, but any high viscous acrylic paint will still work. Because I've already painted 2 other pieces that are in this color palette. If you are new here, I am working on a tarot card project, so that's what I'm painting these for. Normally, if I was just painting a standalone painting, I'd be painting on a canvas, but because these are just gonna go into print, I haven't found that painting canvases is necessary for me. So the paper I've been normally buying, they have stopped manufacturing, which I'm very, very sad about because I bought some new paper and it's just not the same. We'll see. So far, it's just the colors aren't as vibrant or something. I'm getting a little frustrated with the paper that I'm using at the moment. So jury's still out on the paper. By the end of this piece, if I really hate it, I'm gonna try and hunt down this paper and buy as much as possible before it's completely out.
So here I'm just laying down my flats, and with the lilac color, I've mixed up and loaded about half water, half paint onto my brush. And when I start the first initial layers, it's just to lay down the colors and flats, just so the paper has something to grip onto. Don't even bother trying to render at this layer. This first layer is more just helping you make a couple of decisions. So figuring out the tone of color that you want and how heavy or how dark or light you want this tone. And second, you're just laying down a color for the paint to hold onto. It's ultimately a primer layer at the end of the day. This stage could be done quite roughly, so I guess technically it's called washes. So the first couple of layers are just washes, so you can just figure out what colors you really want to lay down. If you haven't got a plan, I usually plan a lot of my colors prior to this stage. This is probably a good time to make your decision making for what colors you are choosing for your piece. And here I'm just lightening up the blue color because I have realized that my blue is a little bit darker compared to the other two cards that I have done. So just trying to go in with a flat brush and do little circle and tapping motions just to blend that out as much as possible, so it kind of is a little bit more seamless to the layer that was on behind. You also can't tell, but this layer is a little bit patchy as well, so I am going in and just trying to undo all of the patchiness. You can also see that the paint goes on quite light, and it does eventually get a bit darker once it dries. Okay, so it's going pretty well so far. What the hell? Hello?
Hello, I'd like to inquire about your Patreon.
Oh yeah, of course.
Could you please give me some more information?
Yeah, I mean, I've been on Patreon for about 6 months now, so
really?
I feel like...
Can you please explain the 2 tiers? I'm not too sure which one is right for me.
I'll just go through the tiers for you right now.
Thank you.
So at the moment, I've got a pictures and polls tier. That's my $2 tier, the lowest tier.
Wow.
And at that tier, you can ask me anything, you know, art advice. I do get asked questions on my Instagram and social platforms pretty much every single day. And my time is worth something, unfortunately, so I can't give out all of that information and knowledge out for free. So
of course.
On that tier, you can just ask me whatever you want, and I'm happy to help and guide you with your art practice or what have you.
Well, that seems pretty good.
Yeah, so you can participate in polls, help with deciding what the next YouTube video should be, help with my business and see like what decisions I need to make there. You also get early access videos and whip pics, so I often post my art there before anything else.
Lovely.
To be honest. I've also got my top tier, which includes cute goodies, so with that you get a physical reward every single month. Yeah, this month was a pin, so
really?
It was pretty good value. It actually works out to be cheaper for the buyer.
Lovely.
To purchase a pin through that way.
Oh, well, thank you very much for clarifying that.
Thank you so much for calling and inquiring about it. Not sure how you got this number, but yeah.
It's very useful.
All right, thank you. Thank you so much for calling.
Oh, yes, I was very confused, so thank you so much for clarifying. That's been very helpful.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yes,
Bye.
thank you. Goodbye.
Huh. Don't even have a landline, so not sure how they called. Anyway, okay. Yeah. Okay, I guess like get back to the video. All right, so I said I wasn't gonna work on the background and then I just went straight into the background. I saw the background was too dark, so I do find that I need to start from the back and then work my way to the front. That's often how I get my lines to be really, really crispy. Because my focus for today is on the top part, I'd like to get, you know, a little bit of her face done. If I could get the face completely done, that'd be great, because for me, when I get the face done, I feel a lot more inspired to keep working on the rest. And also the focal point is on the face, so I do want to focus a lot of my energy and my excitement in the main focal point. I did start on the bottom, but I find for me personally, when I start on elements that aren't as important to the overall piece, I lose momentum. Right now I am just going to be trying to get the lightness in the clouds in the background, and I'll talk you through how I'm going to do that. So at the moment I have placed my white Matisse paint onto the palette with my palette knife. I usually try and get a pretty big globule of white paint. At the moment I'm just going in with a dry technique. If you haven't seen my video where I chat about all the 3 techniques that I mostly use, I will link that below and in a card so you can catch up on the techniques that I'll be going through today. The plan that I made, I had a little bit of white cloud around this area
and then a little bit more around the arm here. So I'm gonna focus a little bit of time just lightening up the clouds. And the way I do that, normally I'll use a flat brush, but I'm not that particular about the brushes that I use. And I've just popped it in a little bit of white and a little bit of water and dried off my brush. So the brush is fairly dry. So this is kind of the dry brush technique where you kind of dust everything on. And I'm moving the brush around back and forth with little circles. Because I've watered down the paint, it is going to dry a lot more translucent, which is great for just building up the paint. With painting, if you are new, painting happens within lots and lots of layers. So I think right now I've got about 2 or 3 layers around in this area just to get the blues and the lighter dusty tones in. And the way to get a cloud in is, yeah, just by building it up, making sure that your brush is pretty dry. So you're really just dusting it on. Usually when I want to just clean my brush, I'll do a little circle mark, dip it in the water and dry it off. Now I'm going to move over to my flat brush just because I want a little bit more surface covered. When I pop the paint onto the brush and load it up, I try and make sure the distribution of the paint is even on both sides and then start the circular blends. So to load up a particular area with a cloud, place your paint in the middle and then kind of blend out the edges. So you can see here I've put quite a heavy bit of paint on and then I'm just blending out the sides. I do want some areas to be a lot heavier in the white, so it is just about laying it in and working pretty quickly to blend it out. Some areas when they do dry, they get a little bit tougher to blend out. So what I normally do is completely clean my brush, and the brush is pretty damp. So you can just use that to wet the area a little bit more, make it a bit more malleable. Sometimes the paint starts to lift. That's fine with me. Sometimes I like to go back and forth with adding and taking away, adding, taking away. The best thing about paint is that you can just paint over it. So if you make a mistake, just paint over that mistake. Okay, so I'm gonna finish that off and then we'll move over to the face. Okay, so it may be very, very subtle with the light dusting and the clouds, but for me now it feels like it's done enough for me to be able to start on the face. I'm gonna keep on painting and I'll speak to you guys probably in a couple of hours.
So with this layer, I am going in and putting in my darker shadows. This just helps me figure out where my lighting is. There's so many decisions that need to be made when you're painting, so taking it in layers and kind of going slowly is really, I think, the only way to go about it if you are a beginner. So yeah, here I'm just laying down colors and trying to figure out where my tones are and what my direction in lighting is. Just tweaking the hair a little bit, and by the way, I did go in with a pen and biro for the really small details in her face just because the scale of this piece is insanely small.
Hello everyone! It has been a couple of days of painting this piece. Now, I figured that a lot of the techniques that I do in my paintings, the techniques are often the same throughout every single element. So right now I'm in the stage of just laying down colors and I'm not doing much blending just yet. I'm just trying to figure out my tones first and then going through, and then we'll be painting in the highlights and doing all of the mixing. So that's what I'm doing at the moment. I am going to skip ahead a little bit with this section just because I feel like this isn't really what the video is about. I'm just laying down colors. The colors that I lay down, I try and lay down initially like a mid-tone, and then I'll start to darken everything and then lighten everything. That way I'm just making sure that I'm not making the piece too dark in the tones. This yellow here is like a mustard yellow. I normally do that for all of my yellow tones. Then I start to lighten them up like over here with the sun. So I'm just gonna continue doing that. I don't know, I'll chat to you guys soon when I'm focusing on one particular section and I'm not laying laying down colors. Okay everyone, so we are up to a stage where I've kind of started the base on all of my flats because I am painting on paper, and this is applicable to canvas as well. I like to start with maybe 2 layers of whatever color I'm going to lay down. This just gives you a really good base for what you're about to place on top of it, so your highlights and your shadows. It just prevents the paint from being eaten up, so you don't do all that hard work for nothing basically. So I've laid down all of my colors that I am planning on. You can see here the bits that I've left white are parts that will be on the very top of the piece, or elements that are closest to the viewer. So now that I've put in my midtones, I'm just going to put in the shadows, and then I'll start to work my way up to the lighter colors. If you have seen my other blending videos, I'll put a little playlist in the description, as well as some other videos that I've made on acrylic painting. So you can see here I'm going over a couple of the dark areas a few times, just because once the paint has dried, I can then see some uneven areas, and I go in with some pretty light layers to just darken up some sections. This part is, for me, I think the funnest part, because I can just make a mess and it doesn't have to be particularly neat. So right now I'm looking for parts that are shadowed by the instrument. My light source is coming from this direction, so I'm trying to put this arm, push it back as much as possible, just to give that depth. And then I'll have to start to put in the shadows on the bodysuit of where the instrument is hitting. So because I've laid down my flats, it is nice and easy for me to put in my shadows, because there is a base of paint for it to grip to. That's why I like to paint with acrylic paint. I know you could probably do the same for oil painting, but yeah, I do like to just put in that mid-tone flat, so I can just roughly put in all of the shadows. All right, I'm gonna continue doing this, and I will chat to you guys soon. So I usually get it to about this point where I've got a mid-tone and I've put in all the shadows, and now I start to slowly lift up one particular section, usually with a pretty watered down acrylic base with a mix of white and yellow. I'll put down my base there. I'll then go and wash my brush off, dry it off on a cloth, and start to mix the side areas just to keep the lifted highlight area. I'm just blending out the edges so it just blends in a little bit more seamlessly. Because the yellow paint is quite watered down, it dries kind of translucent. Really slowly lift everything bit by bit, so you're not making like really intense decisions to go really light straight away. That's the best thing about acrylic painting, or just painting in general. You can just paint over the mistakes and areas. I'm just gonna leave that until it dries a little bit more, and then I'll probably go in with just a straight yellow and do a wash over that, and then start to go in with the more whiter areas. Hello everybody, you've made it to the end. This is the final piece in the end. I'm super excited with the way it came out. Let me know if you like this kind of video. This is the very first kind of tutorial, step-by-step acrylic blending talk along tutorial that I've done before. So yeah, let me know if you like this kind of video. I didn't put every little stage of this painting in this video just because I felt like it would be quite hefty, but more than happy to do more videos like this in the future if it interests you. So let me know down below, either with a like or a comment, if you like these kind of videos. And for 2020, let me know what kind of tutorials you want in the new year. If you got any value out of this video, please consider subscribing to my channel so you can see all the other tutorial videos that I've done in the past, or get to know my art practice down below as well. If you want to see what I've been up to in between videos, head over to my Instagram. I'm starting to do a little mini tutorials on my feed. I just posted one recently that did really well with you guys, so thank you so much for that. All right, see you guys next time. Bye.
Yeah.